Good evening, mate. You all right?
I'm not so bad. I'm not so bad. I'm having one of those days where everything is the kind of day where every single red light, every single set of traffic lights you come up to is red.
Yes, I had that happen to me the other week. I was driving back and down Whitegate Drive. That's just a nightmare when that happens.
You forget how many sets of traffic lights there are, aren't there, until you have to stop at every single one of them.
Yeah, that was absolutely awful for me. Having a bit of a rubbish day myself because I went and ran 10K in under an hour this morning and I'm suffering for it. I don't know why I did it. Well, I do know why I did it because I'm stupid.
Were you being chased by a spectral goblin?
I was at the gym and there were men screaming in there.
Oh, no.
Yeah, which I never like. Yeah, you want to go over and sort of like hug them and say, "You're all right, hon. Yeah, what's the problem? I heard you groaning there and then dropping things."
Yeah, there are many different ways that you can cause yourself pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
So what have we been reading this week? I know we haven't got Sean. Sean isn't here this week. He said he was going to try and make it, but as usual, he's a very busy man. So he's not, unfortunately, able to make it this week, but he will be back at some point in the future.
Yes, and we've been reading The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, short story by Washington Irving, first published in the Sketchbook in 1819 to 1820. Is this similar? Is this ringing bells?
Yes, yeah, this is doing all right. Give us the synopsis.
Right, so Ichabod Crane is a Yankee schoolteacher who lives in Sleepy Hollow, a Dutch enclave on the Hudson River. He's a suggestible man. He believes the ghost stories and tales of witchcraft he has heard and read, and he's particularly impressed by the tale of a spectral headless horseman said to haunt the area. Crane is also a mercenary. He courts Katrina Van Tassel, mostly because she's the daughter of a rich farmer and is expected to receive a large inheritance. Abraham Van Brute, also called Bram Bones, is Crane's jealous rival, a local favourite and a rash horseman who often plays tricks on the schoolmaster. Late one night, as Ichabod Crane rides home from a party at Katrina's home, he is suddenly frightened by a ghost-like headless horseman. The ghost pursues him and hurls at him a round object that he takes to be a head, but it's later revealed to have been a pumpkin. The schoolmaster is never seen in Sleepy Hollow ever again. Dun, dun, dun.
Yep, that's the one that I read.
Yes. What did you think to it?
You know the way when we talk about M.R. James and we say how absolutely bloody brilliant these stories are until the end, and then it kind of pitters off a little bit.
Right.
This I thought was the opposite way around. I thought the end was brilliant and it got really going, but it just it felt like an age to get there.
It did, didn't it? It was a little wadey trying to get through to that final conclusion.
It does an awful lot in a small number of words that make it feel like it's a much larger story than what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think I get exactly what you're saying there, and I think you're absolutely right. It's very, very weak at the front and very, very good in its conclusion, which I liked an awful lot. So what do you think happened in the story? Because we're not given a definitive...
No, I mean, you are, in a funny sort of way, you are given a bit of a Scooby-Doo ending, aren't you? Because the idea that, I mean, I don't know how far we're into this recording before I do my first. You had the Headless Horseman giving Ichabod head as he was riding away, and it was quite drastic as well.
Yeah.
So, and then then they found the crushed pumpkin, and it's left with a kind of wry smile, isn't it? With the story of, we don't even know whether the guy's dead or did he actually go to New York and become a judge and a journalist. And actually, to be perfectly honest with you, we did him a favour if he ran him out of this small town, because he seemed to have a hell of a career when he left, studying law and stuff. But I don't know, it's a very, very old story. And it's trying to do a similar thing that happens with The Open Door, where, is there actually a supernatural element to it, or is there not a supernatural element to it? Is it just someone playing tricks on it? I prefer the idea of it actually being a supernatural thing, because it's, you know, I think it would make that whole chase sequence and ending a bit lame if it wasn't.
Yeah, it would be nice for that to happen, but I like the fact that there's that duality there as well. So if you're reading it and you believe in the supernatural, you can say, yeah, well, it was the Headless Horseman. If you read it and you think no such thing as a supernatural, in that case, you can go, yeah, he was being chased out by the bully.
I think it's one of those things that when you say duality, is I think you're absolutely right in a couple of different respects in terms of the story. Do I think it was done very well? No, I don't think that whole idea of the duality was done very well, because I think the ultimate part of this story is the chase sequence.
Right.
The bit tacked on the end about whether it's real or not real is a nice idea, but I don't think it's handled very well. It's a little bit, because it has certain elements of the storytelling. I mean, I know we've got the unreliable narrator going on, but there are elements of it that go, hang on a second, this is a story being told by somebody else who's been here and is recounting it to someone else. So that whole element of was it him or was it not felt a little bit of a forced twist in that respect, only because of the way that he wrote it, not because of the idea of the twist, but because of the way that he wrote it. And with such a long build up, because he did all the history on who the Headless Horseman was before you got to the story. You kind of got this told, and there's a story of a Headless Horseman, and blah, 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 and there's all this history, and blah, 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 there's all this history. And then you got this bit where they're having a party and telling ghost stories, you know, and in that telling of the ghost stories, he had to load in 3 more ghost stories on top of it before delivering this particular ghost story in the chase, you know, to go through. So I think it's one of those, the ideas behind Sleepy Hollow, I think, are magnificent in that duality respect, but it didn't really fully land for me, the clever bits that are supposed to be there, and the bit that really landed was the chase. I thought the chase was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, to say this is 200 years old, I think it's doing a lot better than either you or I will be doing when we're 200 years old. But yeah,
I understand why it has longevity, but it doesn't have longevity in that. It has longevity in the basics of the story.
Yeah,
you know, the bones of the story are there to be played with, and it's a really nice tale. And I did a bit of research as well. You might be proud of me for doing this, I don't know, but I did a bit of research that he was actually in Birmingham in England when he wrote it.
Really?
Yes. And he'd been on a tour of Europe at the time, and they think it's basically a retelling of a story from Germany that he's then moved over to America.
Good Lord, yes. Yeah, I've just seen that in my notes as well. So yeah, living in Birmingham.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the Headless Horseman. You know, it's the, you know, but the adding, that's why.
Crime busting pumpkins.
All right, he's like him, he's chasing me. That's why. Well, I think we've just offended an entire area of Britain there.
For change, yes.
But I think it's one of those. Once you kind of know that, you know, we were talking about the idea of when we were talking about the yellow wallpaper, where sometimes you read things and because you know history, you can then extrapolate more out of it, or you can deconstruct it in a different way. And the yellow wallpaper, you didn't have to know the history for that to land in its way. I think with this one is when you know the history, it feels more bolted together, because the whole story of the Headless Horseman feels really rounded and it feels very complete. And when you actually think that's the bit, that's a genuine old tale.
Yeah.
You know, and what he's done is he's bolted on the history of the man who gets his head blown off by a cannonball, and then he's bolted on the twist at the end, and that's why it doesn't quite gel in that way, because he's taken something, because the other ones, because he does the White Woman as well, and there's the other Tale of the Goblins. Can't remember what the other one was, but the White Woman wailing before a storm. You know, as
Yes.
one of the you sort of go, and if you know a bit about folk ghost stories, you know, and I know you've done a lot of research, particularly into the UK ones, then the tale of the white woman howling and the woman in black, and you know, that kind of stuff. They are classic tales from those kind of things, and it just feels a little bit bolted together. But it's like you say, it is 200 years ago, so you know, the sophistication within effectively stealing other stories, which we all do, is, you know, is I'm not putting it down for the fact that he's retelling the story at all. But I think when you have that as a knowledge in your head already, you can see where one is more rounded and has more maturity about it than the rest of it.
Absolutely. One of the key themes, according to my notes, is greed within this novel.
Yes.
Does Ichabod come across to you as a greedy character?
By today's standards, no. I think he just comes across as, again, he's and again, in comparison to someone like Charles Dickens, I don't find him as rancid as a lot of the other characters that we have read, in a way. You know, he's trying to be, I suppose it's a bit like, you know, because you've got him and you've got the other one, whatever his name is, Ishmael, is it?
Abraham.
And it's like they're kind of doing this whole, again, it's writing characters. There's no sympathetic characters in the middle of it all. You've got a horrible character being bullied by a horrible character because the horrible character wants to get off with this woman so that he can get money, when this other horrible character's already got this woman, and they've kind of carried him by doing, you know, oh yes, I really do like you, now get out, and then, you know, looks like they're playing a trick. So there's no real there's nothing there's no one you're really rooting for in the whole.
Maybe the Headless Horseman.
Maybe, but you know, maybe. But then that's what he's saying. If it becomes a twist and he's not actually real and it's all been a joke, you know, then that would be a case. I can see why the tale works so well, but I don't know. It's one of those ones that I started off really loving it. I was listening to the language. I was adoring the language, and I was adoring the whole backstory stuff. And I thought, this is going really well. And it was, you know, and then he got to the bit where all the food was, and he started describing all the food. And I was like, why are you describing the food? And then went on to actually say, I'd like to describe this food more, but I've got a story to tell. And at that point, I'm thinking, but this is the recounting of a tale that somebody's read somewhere else. Where's the food coming to? Coming to it, and there's this whole section of all the food, and it started kind of I think that started twisting my head a little bit and pulling me out of the wonderful language and the universe it was in at that point. So by the time the party was over, I was kind of like a bit fed up of it, and then we got the excitement of the horse race. This might be one of those ones I'm not doing it justice because of a stupid little thing like he over described the food.
No, I think one of the things that's in the favour of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow is that it's been done again and again in different media. So we sort of like had various films. I think the most recent one was, well, maybe not the most recent one. I think there's a TV series of Sleepy Hollow, but you've got the Johnny Depp one as well.
Yes.
We've been told this story in so many bright, exciting and visual ways that going back to the original text is bound to be a disappointment. I mean, the Johnny Depp version, you've got Johnny Depp, you've got Christopher Walken, you've got what's the face who was copying off with Spider-Man.
And it's real, and it has multiple deaths, and it has a much more vengeful storyline to it. Because I was also thinking I'm pretty certain, because Disney did a version in 1949, and I'm pretty certain that one of the things that they did, I need to go and watch it again, is they made it so that the other bully was doing the joke version of the Sleepy Hollow, but then there was actually a real one that then came after the bully. So it's one of those, I've scared you off by pretending to be a ghost, and then there's the real ghost.
Which again, we're sort of like seeing comeuppance happening on somebody who deserves it, whereas I don't think Ichabod Crane deserved to be run out of town.
No, he didn't do anything malicious, did he? He was just a bit kind of like, I mean, to be really honest with you, we've read a lot of stuff from the 1800s now, where the patriarch really were a bunch of absolute bastards.
Yeah.
And that's just what they were doing. I'll pick a woman because she's got money. It wasn't seen as a particularly unvirtuous thing to do back in the 1800s. So, in what Ichabod was doing, that's why I say by today's standards, nowhere near. You read things like Dickens and you go, oh my God, the times back then were awful and blah, blah. And, you kind of see that kind of thing. I don't think Ichabod really comes across as a villain by today's standards.
Absolutely. He's just a teacher. When it comes to doling out punishment, it sort of like says that he's fair and even in the way that he approaches it. He doesn't sort of like unnecessarily punish students, and the ones that do get punished are the ones that are deserving of it. So yeah.
And it has a particularly poor tale to the end of it, doesn't it? Because the guy says, I'm not sending my kids to school anymore. Nothing good comes out of reading and writing.
Yeah, which...
So, but the core of the story, like I say, the bones of the story, I understand why that's lasted, because it has that folk tale about it. And I think he just got a good title by calling it Sleepy Hollow, because if it was called like, I don't know, I'm trying not to be racist against the Germans here, but say it was in like Carlton Valley or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Of course, that story is just a Headless Horseman story. It doesn't have that same marketable idea about it. Where the Legend of Sleepy Hollow has the title is wonderful.
Yeah. Works really, really well. The main villain that we've got in here, if we go down the supernatural route, is the Headless Horseman.
Yes.
How scary is it to have somebody who is still sentient without a head?
Oh, yeah. I think it's that classic case, isn't it? It's all about eyes and faces. This is why we've had so many problems with people with masks, I think, over the last couple of years, because not being able to see someone's face, it takes away their effectively. You take away the eyes, you take away the soul, you take away the mouth, you take away all the emotions that we gain as we're doing those kind of things. So it's taking away the whole head. So first of all, you instantly know that this thing shouldn't be alive.
Yeah.
Quite often you might see a ghost and you go, oh, you woman wearing black, what are you doing here? And then realise he turns around and she's got no eyes. But instantly, from whatever angle you are at, from behind, you can tell that person shouldn't be alive because they have no head. So yeah,
it is a very, very disconcerting idea, the whole notion that something's lost a head and it's still going around. Have we actually read Reanimator?
No, we haven't actually, and I think we should read that one.
Yeah, we must, because that one of the main characters in it is someone who's had their head removed, and it's
a really interesting thing, isn't it? Because the removal of the head should be just preposterous. The idea of something walking around without a head on, right? And in Reanimator, when he's actually got a head and the head's talking, and you're going, how's he moving air through his windpipes? How's he doing that? But it still works. It has this kind of primal. I think it's one of the great primal fears. It's like if you see someone with their eyes gouged out, it's even if it's a really, really bad special effect, the idea of someone's eyes being removed is a really deep-rooted thing that we recoil against, because we need them, and they are so important. Yeah. And the head is one of those. I think the idea of seeing somebody with no hand and seeing someone with no head, no head. It's always, however ridiculous it might be that they're walking around without a head, it's one of those points, isn't it? The head is so important to being alive. That
was loud, wasn't it? Makes me wish I didn't have a head when that thing's. Um, if we're still down the supernatural road,
Yes.
we've got somebody who's animate but lacking a head.
Yes.
Is the horse a supernatural horse, or is it a real horse?
Well, if I was thinking about it from that point of view, the horse would have to be supernatural as well. And I think it was because because it's not just a ghost, it actually is like as he refers to it, a goblin, which means that it has it kind of comes into a corporeal state so that it can act some sort of vengeance on something. So therefore the horse should have eyes of fire. It's like a hell stallion that is that this goblin rides upon. So therefore it should be able to ride faster, and the horse's hooves will be louder to strike fear into people.
But yeah, you're right. All of that story takes place in the last 5 minutes of it, really. And the rest of it starts building narrative tension and then does lose its grip on it. We're sort of like getting a really exciting story, and then he just overwords himself.
He does, yeah. I mean, it works. When he slips into the history of the guy that gets his head blown off by a cannonball, that still works at that point. It actually, my brain is going, oh, I like what he's done here. He's kind of, because it's a really nice way of doing it, isn't it? You're sitting there going, oh, there is this place that sits outside this person, and this person then goes to here. And this was the place where they talk about this horseman, who legend has it is this person, and had a history. Yeah. But then to try and add this love triangle part on the back of it all, that's where it loses it for me. That's where it starts becoming uninteresting, because none of the characters are likable.
Yeah, and in reality, I don't think it was the supernatural thing. I think, from my reading of it, I think it was just that brum, 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 stroke victim. Abraham, that was it. Abraham is sort of like slipping it to Katrina, and he's just sort of like saying, look, let's get Ichabod out of the picture. And she goes, yeah, all right, and plays along with it. And just nasty people being nasty.
It's just what they do in Carrie, isn't it? It's if you look at the film version of Carrie, it's the John Travolta character and that cheerleader that he's going out with. I'm going to pretend, because that's what the woman does in my mind. She goes, I'm going to pretend to like Ichabod so that I can say no and reject him so that he feels crap about it. And then you go and scare him. It's that kind of, it's the jock and the lead bitch from an American high school.
I'm surprised they didn't pour blood all over her.
All over him. Well, they threw a head at him, which turned out to be a pumpkin. So God knows what they put in his drink for him to say he saw a head on his lap.
But in fairness, I enjoyed the story. It's not been the best one that we've looked at so far, but that conclusion. And I think for a story to be good, it's either got to be good right at the beginning or right at the end. Ideally both, and sort of like good stuff in the middle. But this hit the right note at the end.
I can see why it has the longevity to it. I'm going to say, I think the title is amazing. I really do. I think the title carries so much of the weight of it. I think the legend that's behind it is really good. It's got a lot that's underpinning it nicely. And I can see why all versions of it have never really done the true version of it, because I think, like you say, you watch all these other adaptations of it, and it is like what people gone, oh, I'd have done this with it, and they then went and did that with it. It's that kind of thing. So I think it definitely deserves its place as being a very important horror story. I really do. It's not like some of them where I think, and I will refer back to Dickens' Signal Man, actually, because Dickens' Signal Man gets a huge amount of kudos for being this great British ghost story. And I don't think it deserves that. I think the descriptions, the quality of writing is there, but as a ghost story, I don't think it deserves it. you know, as much as others. Like Open Door really deserves to be one of the great British ghost stories.
Absolutely, yeah.
More people should know about that one. I think this one deserves it. I think it deserves to be in those, you know, it's because it's an early version. If this was written around about the 1890s and it was like that, I would not give it the same leeway as I give this, because 1820 is very early on in all of this. So I'm going to give it leeway because of when it was written. I think, you know, once you get to the 1890s and getting into the turn of the century, there's 100 years of texts there that you know, and you can see the quality is better when you get towards the end of the century. So I'll give it that every day of the week. I think, and what he tried to do, I'll give him absolute plaudits for, trying to take this European ghost story and take it to a new country, which 1820 America, that's still pretty new. I mean, you know, you're only at the real start of the steam age at that point, and you really, you know, the whole cowboys and Indians isn't really going off at that point. I know I'm supposed to call them Native Americans now, but that's not how they're portrayed in the movies. But the whole kind of Wild West was still very early days at that point. It was all settlements. It was all, you know, the new, you know, the new lands. So I think I will give it a lot of leeway for that as well. In that I appreciate exactly what he tried to do. I think he had skills as a writer, because the whole beginning part of it, the whole history part of it, and the chase are very, very well done. But I think he just lost his way a little bit in a couple of bits, which is forgivable because of when it was written.
And it's also forgivable because poor bastard was in Birmingham when he was writing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No wonder he couldn't find any likable character. No, I'm sorry, Birmingham. I don't mean it. But yeah, that's the way I see it. It suffered from no real likable characters. I think that's why that bit didn't work. The love triangle didn't work, because you should be completely and utterly empathizing with Ichabod, I think, or you should be completely and utterly empathizing with Abraham, because you should be going, this Ichabod should have been so terrible that going after him in that way becomes justice in what it is. There's no justice in the whole thing. Yeah.
I think an absence of justice really can, it really can kill a story.
Yeah.
But enjoyed it. So what are we reading next week?
Well, do you fancy doing something that bit different?
Naked.
Oh dear, that actually, I've got a pulled muscle in my chest right now, and that really hurt.
No, maybe not naked.
No, not naked. But it's the reason you've thrown me is because the actual thing is called Psychode, and it threw me a bit.
Right, go on.
Okay, well, it's a play called Psychode, but we're not going to do the whole play. We're going to do the poem from the middle of it, which is actually titleless, but it gets called many things. Psychode is the thing, and it's psycho-ed. I tried to remember who wrote it. If I just look it up on here, it's an interesting story about how it was written. Let's have a look. No, you're not going to come up that way, are you? And everybody will know the poem, actually, because I think it's one of those poems that has gone into the
conscious.
Yes, thank you. I told you, I'm having one of those days where everything is just forgetful. And it starts off with the line, "As I was walking up the stairs," which will give it away to I think. And Antigonish, Antigonish is the name of the poem, also known as The Little Man Who Wasn't There. Psychode, which is spelled Psycho-ed. And it was written by this American educator called William Hughes Merians, Mearns, Merians, I pronounce that as. It's a 3-part poem. The first stanza, "Yesterday upon the stairs I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. Oh, how I wish he'd go away," is the bit that everybody kind of knows. It's been in Sapphire and Steel. It's from the Victorian times, but it kind of has legend about it. Most people don't know where it comes from, and so it becomes this. I've actually seen it written down where it has no named author as being this kind of mysterious thing, but there are 3 stanzas to it. And he wrote it apparently as a way of demonstrating how to write a play.
Brilliant. I look forward to this.
Yeah, it's a very short read, but I think we can really get into why this works in a number of ways, because I think it is creepy as. It's just one of those things, seriously creepy, but we can go into the discussions on it in a big way, because it's an unusual piece. So something very, very different from what we normally do.
Absolutely can't wait.
Okay.
Colin, thank you. Yeah.
Yes, that was a great discussion. Thank you very much. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell. Whatever it takes. Lovely to be back here again. And we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.